Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. In the next episode of Gardening for a Family of Four, I want to show you what tends to happen. We get a garden started, we get busy, we get sidetracked, life gets in the way, the garden starts to get out of control. So this space has lots of weeds. You can get in and you can weed them by hand. I recommend, and this is what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get a weed whacker and clean these up. Get this under control. You'll feel better because the weeds will be cut back. You can worry about weeding later. My winter crops, they all have to come out. I'm going to remove those. I'm going to show you how to plant bush beans, pole beans, eggplant, some other summer crops into here. As we come up here, take a look at what we started with. And we see the tomatoes are doing really well. They're getting out of control. So I'm going to show you how to bottom prune. You want to start taking the leaves from the bottom of the plant so that you create some nice airflow. I'll show you what suckers are in here, although I have videos on it which I will link in the video description so you can understand it better. And then we're going to tie these tomatoes up to the poles. They're growing really well. Lots of growth. They're going to get out of control, so we're going to make some decisions about cutting back the plant. Looking at the peppers, they're looking a little bit yellow. And when you see plants that are generally looking yellow, that means it's really time for a fertilizer. So I'll show you how to use the water-soluble fertilizers, feed the tomatoes and the peppers. Right in the front, we had rabbits coming in. They kept chewing down the lettuce. They all have to come out. The radishes are past their prime. They developed a little bit. Maybe we got them into the garden a little bit late with the heat coming. Radishes don't like it that much, and you can see a squirrel or something dug in there. So all the radishes will come up or come out. And maybe right in this corner, actually, we'll do some pole beans. But this space will have tomatoes, peppers, pole beans, maybe some bunching onions for salads and stuff like that. But I think it looks pretty good. This place has been pretty much neglected, and that's what can happen when you're trying to garden and raise a family. So we will clean this up, take care of the plants. So not even 15 minutes work. A weed eater, weed whacker, chop everything down. A lot of these are annual weeds, so they don't come back. But you can, you know, spend a lot of time kind of weeding by hand, or you can just cut it back and be done with it. Pulled out the radishes. The beans, we're going to put some pole beans right there. And because we already saw damage from rabbits, because they can get in here, we'll put the beans inside the tomato cage, and then we're going to wrap that cage with chicken wire, even saran wrap, anything to keep the rabbits from getting to it when they germinate and chewing them down. Once the bean plants get larger, it's perfectly fine. We'll also have to put a pole right in here. Here's a little side note. These are potatoes I never got into the ground. So they just sat there. I thought animals would take them, but they've all rooted and they look good. They're not soft, they're not, you know, rotting. So I'm gonna mound dirt on those, and then I'll just have a mound of potatoes growing in there. It'll be kind of an experiment. I have potatoes in those bags. So quick work, 15 minutes. Your motivation will come back. It looks cleaned up. It looks like you got your blank slate. We're going to focus on the space over here because that's how the series started, but I'll also be planting in the other beds if you want to use some of that information. All right, tomatoes. Let me cut in. This is what the tomatoes will look like after we go through the staking and pruning process. Didn't like that part of the video because some of the stuff got out of frame, so I just want to give you a close-up. I am just tying the vines just like that. I use the pole. Nice big circle. This way the tomato vine doesn't get strangled. You can also wrap the string once around the pole if you have a pole that's circular like this where it may slide. That will keep the string in place more. And again, it's just a nice loose tie like that. Plenty of room for the vine to grow and move. No science behind this. You know, you don't have to be perfect. That's what I want to stress out. I'm basically going to just pick this thing up, tie it to the stake, let it go, take some leaves off the bottom. They both look perfectly well, like I've been doing this for a while. Before you get started, water everything in well. I like to water everything, and then I add the water-soluble fertilizer, which we will do for the pepper plants and the tomato plants too. But they look a little bit too yellow, but I like them to be a little bit more green, so I'll show you how to do that. The tomatoes, and this is what happens, I mean, I want to kind of keep this real, as we get the garden started, life gets in the way, and then you come back and your tomato plant has fallen over, you don't have it staked up. We have plenty of time to do this. You don't want to go much past this because this guy's getting huge. But cherry tomatoes are on there, on the vine right there. There's some damage down there. That looks like it's just from some insects. I think it'll be fine. You're going to need some sort of posts, at least 6 feet. Cherry tomatoes get huge. They get out of control. We will do some pruning, but you can put in a couple stakes around here, and we're just going to train the vine going straight up. I use just natural fiber, cut it into lengths about that size, nothing special. And when you loop around the pole in the vine, just don't pull it tight. Leave it loose like that so that you don't choke the vine, and it'll be perfectly fine. There's no science behind this, as in you have to be perfect. If you do it wrong, you're going to mess it up. It's not like that. We're just taking the vines, slapping them on the posts, making it easier for us to manage the plant. All right, I'll show you how to do it. All right, so this guy is a bit out of control. Usually when the plant is this size, we want to tie it to the pole. As it grows more, we want to tie it to the pole. We would do some pruning and stuff like that, but that's okay. So gently, this is really heavy too. Oh Lord, it's way out of control. So, I'll wait till I show you the zoom out of this. This is gigantic. So, massive plant that I let get out of control. And we're actually going to tie it off here. It's above the camera. That's all right, because it's the same way you tie it at the bottom. So I'm tying the top of the vine up high. And you might need somebody to help you if you let it get out of control like this. All right, so that one's up. And all we really do is we take the lower vines, like this one maybe we're gonna take out. Let's see. Like I said, no science behind it. So maybe we'll keep them. So, you got this? We're just going to tie them off right here. Nice big gap. And this plant will be trellised upward, probably to the fence. Now that we have up some of it, I take a look down here at the bottom. Let me make sure it's in view. Perfect. We'll tie another one down in case I missed it. You're going to just start trimming off the branches down here. And in case, because this plant's so big, in case I got out of frame here, I'll go over it again with a close-up. And we just want to create a nice gap right down here. That will allow airflow, help keep the plant dry, allows us to kind of inspect what's going on. When we put down mulch, which is already down a little bit, that creates a splash barrier so soil-borne diseases and problems won't splash up because you have mulch down. Plus you have a nice gap, which when this does splash, it's not going to get on the lower leaves. You know, this is not an exact science. I don't want you to think you have to go and be perfect. You can pretty much just pick up the whole plant, tie it to the posts, secure it, and then do exactly what we're doing here. So this plant is actually almost 6 feet tall. You definitely don't want to wait this long. Start trellising them when they're at 2-3 feet. So you can see this is going to grow out this way. I'll probably put it into the fence. I could tie it right up to here. Just getting in close. You know, just a nice basic circle. If you want to loop it around, you can loop it around the pole just like that. You can then even tie it and then put it around your vine of your tomato plant. Looking in here, there is one vine right in here that I just don't want to trellis into there. It's just going to be too much stuff. So I'm actually going to reach in, find where it's at, which is right down there, and give it a snip. There's some tomatoes on there. That's okay. I have so many. So I remove that. I'm looking around. This vine's tied up. So everything else is pretty much tied up. Remember that I was talking about leaving a gap? So because this is again 6 feet tall, I can take off a lot of leaves right now. Usually when it gets to about the 3 foot mark, you take off a couple of leaves down here. When it gets to the 4 foot mark, you take off a couple of more. And you slowly build this 12-inch splash barrier that I've been talking about. And we're going to leave the cherry tomato just like this. Now, this was chaotic. That's the mentality I want you to have, is you can't really mess up pruning your plant. So let's go over to the larger red tomato over there, and then we'll kind of refine what we just did here. Feel free just to get out here, throw the vine right onto a couple of poles. Let's just do a before and after. So here's what, I believe this was a supersonic. So these are going to be about baseball-sized tomatoes. They grow more slowly, less massively than the cherry tomatoes, but they're going to be packed with really beautiful red tomatoes. So you can see that the main trunk is right there. It's going over to the right. I'm just going to pull it right into the post, tie it up from the bottom going up. This plant's almost probably 5 feet tall, so it's out of control too. But we'll tie it to the post, prune out the bottom. Very, very simple. The supersonic is tied off, and I kept 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think, vines going up there. There's a bunch down at the bottom. What you see going all the way across coming out there, that's starting to produce flowers. That would also produce fruit, but we're going to actually remove them. I'm going to clean up the bottom. And this is what you have to kind of be brave enough to do. You don't have to keep all of the plant. In the next episode, I'm just going to go in there, let's see, and cut that off. Cut off the leaf, pull it out. I'll show you everything I'm taking off these plants. Coming down here, cutting that off too. In the next episode, I'll show you how to identify suckers, talk about removal. I already have videos on that. You can check out my channel now, but I'll do it again for this series. Let's see where that one, I must cut something that I'm keeping. So you always want to make sure you know what you're cutting. Cut off some of these leaves. Let's take those out. Some of the smaller ones you can snap off with your finger, but we're creating that nice space down there. We'll take off this one. Some of the ones back here. And we've kind of really opened up that space. That's all you want to do. And then we have the main vine comes out. Then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 that we're keeping for growing right up this way. That's all you have to do for this plant. All right, let's get to feeding the peppers. So the pepper plants, again, they look a little bit yellow. They're not as big as I want them to be. I put stakes in. You should also stake your pepper plants, give them some support, and it's just a simple loop. Just like that. The actual stems are pretty fragile, so when they get bigger and you're pulling off fruit or the peppers get heavy, sometimes they can break, especially if it gets windy. But I tied that one, and that one, and this one's not quite big enough. You know, they should be probably twice the size. You can take some string, just tie it to your stake, and then you untie it and you can use it later. So when you're walking out here checking on it, you don't have to bring your string out and your scissors. You're ready to go. So I also don't like that this guy's producing peppers and it's this small, so I'm going to take them off, and I'm actually going to take them all off of here. It's okay, it's later June, there's plenty of time for these to take off and thrive. I just don't want the energy going into the peppers at this point. And you know, this little handful will go into a salad today. I want to get these growing, and then I'll let the peppers do what they want to do. This is a water-soluble fertilizer. This is a 2-gallon watering can. I have fish emulsion in there. So you want water-soluble. We already set up the soil earlier. Water-soluble means the N, the nitrogen, which will green this up, will be immediately available to your pepper plants and to the tomato plants or anything you're watering. You can find fish emulsion if you check out the video description. Go to my Amazon store. You'll find fish emulsion in there and all kinds of different water-soluble fertilizers. I also use AgroThrive, which is organic. Fish emulsion is organic. And you can find a link for that, save 10%, in the video description. Now, if you don't have the money for organic fertilizers, sometimes they're a little bit more expensive. The chemical type water-soluble fertilizers are safe. They're not going to hurt you. They're not going to hurt the plant. They're not going to kill out your soil life, because you're just going to use it for a little bit. But you can use that also. Use it for this season as you get a better budget, or you're making your own organic compost, start using that. But I don't want you to be afraid of using the chemical type fertilizers. We're just going to water it in, a really big soaking, just like that. When you're mixing these, it's usually X amount of fish emulsion or AgroThrive or whatever to 1 gallon of water. It will always say how to mix it. But you don't have to pour a whole gallon onto here. You know, that's a good amount, but these are struggling. So we'll hit this now, and in about 10 days, I will also give them more of the water-soluble fertilizer. The tomato plants look great, but I'm going to give them some fertilizer right now. You don't have to be perfect with fertilizing, meaning you can use just about anything you want, to be honest. But you just don't need to overdo it, and you don't need to overspend on it. Let me pour this one in here. All right, so this section now is pretty much under control, and I think this might be one of my favorite videos because these tomatoes were a mess. Maybe 10 minutes each to stake them up. They're going to do really well. Follow the video series. You'll see how well these do. You'll see how the peppers come back. They're going to be perfectly fine. All right, let's plant a couple of things and then we'll finish up. So let's plant some pole beans and some bush beans. If you're looking for a great place to buy your seeds, check out Bentley Seeds. So pole beans, they're going to grow 6, 8, 10 feet. You're going to need something for them to trellis on. I like using the cage, and because I'm getting rabbits, I'm going to put in the seeds. I'll show you how to do that, and then I'm going to wrap some chicken wire around here. That will keep the rabbits out. The pole beans will grow up here. As they grow up to the top of the 6-foot pole, you can just then train them back down, but you want something like this. So just in this space, we're going to put 4 bean seeds. Just press them in. There's, you can see them, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. We already prepared the soil in the first video in this series. Just push these down about 1/2 inch. You could put in a 5th one, and then we would water that in. Water the new seeds about every other day, especially now that it's June and it's getting hot. You want to just keep that area nice and moist, and then when they establish, you know, 2 or 3 times a week depending on the temperatures. Over here we have some bush beans, and then the bush beans are going to get about 2 feet tall. They're usually going to produce first. They produce a bunch of beans and they die off. The pole beans just keep growing through the season. So I'm just dropping a seed. There's one, then maybe 4 inches. I put 2 more over here, another 4 inches or so, another one right there, and about 6 inches across I put another row. You can put in 1 seed or 2 seeds, I guess. Push them down about 1/2 inch. And beans usually germinate pretty well. I like to just put in a second seed here and there in case one of them doesn't germinate. So in this space, you know, 8 to 10 seeds. Now, again, we get rabbits. It's hard to take care of that. So a little trick that I use, I'm gonna have to step back a second. It's all the way over here. I go to the dollar store. I buy these dish racks. They're usually actually $1. I said the dollar store. I go to the thrift stores and I find these all the time for $1 or $2. This will keep the rabbit out. They will get tall enough, you can let them grow through here. This will keep the rabbit away and you don't have to put up an elaborate fence. But this is perfect for your bush beans. So we have bush beans over here. We have pole beans over here. The pole beans will continue to grow and produce over the season. The bush beans will produce first, get to a set height, and then they finish up and we remove them. Right in this space, we're going to drop in a row of bunching onions. And I'll show you how to do that. First thing you want to do is just set up a row like that. Maybe 1/2 inch deep. Doesn't have to be perfect. These are bunching onion seeds. They're nice and small. They don't form big bulbs like your regular onions, and you're just sprinkling some, you know, almost every 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch. You don't have to be perfect. These are well overseeded, and they're kind of like spring onions. Just really load them in there and then cover them over, and they'll get, you know, at least 12 inches tall And when they're about the size of your pinky maybe, or like a pencil, you could just pick some of these, chop them up, and use them as you wish. So the next thing we would do is water this in, so soak it in, and again, you want to water these every other day. So this is a 4 foot by 4 foot space. We have our peppers, we have tomatoes, we put in green beans, some bunching onions, and that's pretty good for a 4 foot by 4 foot space. In the next video in this series, we're going to fix up the soil over there. I will drop in some eggplant, and then I'm going to show you how to start cucumbers, zucchini, and squash from seed. We still have plenty of time to plant. We can plant those squash, zucchini, and cucumbers in June, in July, towards the end of July. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com, and please subscribe. This will be an ongoing series for 2022. And this is just to really help you kind of get started. Of course, you can grow in more space than what you see right here, but this is a great way to get started. Thanks for watching.